name's Victoria. I'm the Global Talent and Culture Manager at SilverRail Technologies, and I'm passionate about creating and transforming company cultures where every individual can truly feel valued, inspired, and driven and aligned with that company. So since COVID, many of you will recognize we have been absolutely inundated with news of what companies are doing around the world. So whether that's, do we do hybrid, remote, or working from home? How are they hiring or firing? What's going well and what's not? The 4-day working weeks, should we do it? You know, you see your competition maybe doing it, and that puts pressure on us because our teams are asking for 4-day working weeks. And also how candidates are leading the charge on the new world of work. Now, all of this together creates so much pressure on us in companies, and especially in HR teams, to help try and work out and decide what choices we should be making as companies. And so it's incredibly hard for us as companies to know, what do we do? Which choice do we make? And what's going to be the right one? Not only this, but what mattered to candidates before has completely shifted. So during COVID, our worlds were ripped from underneath us. Everything changed. The way that we work changed, the way that we balance work-life balance, you know, and have kids coming in or dogs barking in the background, because all of a sudden we were inviting people into our homes. It really meant that people started to reevaluate their lives. And if you look at the Great Resignation and how many startups, for example, have happened in the last few years, it's because people are looking for a shift in the way that they used to live and work. So what mattered before to people was money. They wanted a good salary, and they were open to the highest bidder. They wanted opportunities to learn, develop, and grow, and they wanted a good culture. Now, I'm not saying that these things aren't important still. They're still very, very important, and they're still front of mind. But it has changed. And what we're seeing more and more is that what matters now is very, very different. And people are looking to make a difference in their lives, and they're looking for meaning. So firstly, what they're looking for is flexibility. People want to work in a way that suits their lifestyle. So they want to be able to flip that work-life balance ethos to a life-work balance and be able to not have to sacrifice their life anymore in order to have the career that they want. They're also looking for impact. So as I mentioned, they want to make a difference, and they want it to be important what they're doing. And finally, people want to align with the values and the beliefs of the company. So, you know, we spend 1/3 of our lives at work. What people want now is they want to be feeling that what they're doing is not wasteful and unimportant, and that every day what they're doing is making an impact. The other thing that we've seen change, and this again is, I believe, since the pandemic, we've seen quite a shift with this. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I thought that this really represented the shift in the profiles that you might see within your business. So as I'm going through these, I want you to think about which one you are, and I will share mine as well, but have a bit of a think. Also think about the people within your team. Which one are they? Where do you recognize, you know, the certain profiles that you have? So what happened is we had these kind of 4 main profile groups break apart when we went through the pandemic, and now as we're moving to this new world of work. So the first one is our superstars. Now, your superstars are the ones that are incredibly career driven. They're the ones always looking for opportunities to learn and develop and grow. And they really like being in the office because they like being front of mind. They like being seen because it gives them more opportunities by leadership to show who they are and to get those opportunities. Then you've got your lifestylers. Now, your lifestylers are the ones that they're still very career driven, but their life comes first. And what they want is to be able to work in an environment where it's where they want to be, you know, whether it's on a, you know, by a mountain or a lake or on a beach, whatever it is, they want to be working in a way that suits their life, and then the career comes after. Then you have your socializers, and your socializers are the ones, they do tend to be younger generation, not always, but can be the younger generation. And these are the people that really like being, you know, together so that they can collaborate and communicate and grab a drink at the end of the day and spend time with one another. And then finally, you have your rock stars. Now, these are the ones that have been in the company for, you know, normally quite some time. They normally have quite a long tenure. They're not so worried about their careers anymore, but they are incredibly loyal, hardworking individuals. But what they will do is they'll do their job, and at the end of the day, they close their laptop and they step away, and they don't want to give any more because they need to spend time with their families now, or, you know, they want to have a better balance with things. And these are the people that maybe are happy to come to the office a couple of days a week, but they do want to have that kind of home life and better home life balance as well. Now, myself, I'm a lifestyler. I live in Milan. I've been living here for the last 4 years, and my company is actually based in the UK. So for the last 4 years, I've worked fully remotely. And the reason I'm a lifestyler is because I love to be able to travel and do my job at the same time. I wonder which one you guys are. I wish I could speak to you properly. I would ask some of you, but maybe have a little think about that. So with all these changing trends, all of this new information, all of the things that our candidates and our employees are looking for, what the news is saying about our competition and what companies are doing, and then those four different profiles, how on earth, as HR and as companies, are we supposed to stay ahead? And what we're seeing more and more is that companies are grasping at straws, trying to navigate the changes of the world of work. And what we're doing most of the time is we're looking for answers from leaders within our industries and saying, what are they doing? How are they doing it? But that's not necessarily the best approach. And I want to share this as a really good example of why this isn't the best approach. It's a very smart idea, but it doesn't necessarily always work. So this came out in the news I think mid last week, so it's quite new. But GoPuff decided to hire a couple of dozen Amazon managers in order to basically take their processes and implement and integrate it into their own business. Now, what they did find is that some processes became much more efficient, and that's great. But what they did see is that it actually really damaged their culture. And that's not to say that Amazon doesn't have a good culture. It's because they're very different companies, and each company has their own footprint. And if you try to take the footprint of another company and put it into yours, it's not necessarily going to work. Especially in this example, GoPuff are a small scale startup going on scale, and Amazon are obviously a huge enterprise. And so now they're trying to fix this issue of what it did to their culture and trying to work around that. So this is how I believe that we make a difference and we make the right choices. So I love this quote: escape competition through authenticity. So authenticity is how companies can make the right choice for them. As I mentioned, what's right for one company isn't necessarily going to be right for yours, but you know yourselves, you know your company, you know your people. So look inside your company, look at your culture, look at your mission, work with your leadership, and speak with your team. And when you look inside, you can find the right answers of, okay, do we want to try a 4-day working week? Is working hybrid going to be the best approach for us? And you can find those answers if you are authentic with who you are as a company. You can't be everything to everyone. We've gone through those 4 profiles. We cannot please every single person with the choices that we make. But that's okay, because those that align with what we're doing, they're going to be the ones that stay in the company. Those that don't will probably make the choice to leave. Or if it's an employee, if it's a candidate coming in, they'll choose that your company isn't the right place for them. But that's actually a really good thing. And I think it's okay. You know, I feel like in HR and companies for so long, we have a fear of when people leave. But it's not necessarily a bad thing because, you know, we should be excited for their new opportunities, but we should also be excited that the people that we have within our companies are the people that truly are excited about what we're doing and the people that really are going to thrive. We're not going to have bums on seats that, you know, are you know, just going through presenteeism, or the new word, quiet quitting. So the next step that is really crucial is around the employer branding. So why does it matter? Your internal brand is essentially your internal and your external brand, which is your guiding light that ensures your success, and it lets people know who you are. So in its three simplest terms and three simplest main points, we could go much more into detail, but we don't have time today. But the three main points are: your brand lets people know who you are. The authenticity that you're presenting breeds that success. And finally, it attracts the people that align with your business. If you have the right team driven to help your company succeed and bought into the mission, imagine that. Imagine having a whole team that are so excited and inspired and driven and really pushing for your success as a company, and also for their own personal enjoyment. Going back to what I said at the start, not having that disengagement and that Sunday night dread because they truly love what they're doing. And as I mentioned, it reduces that risk of that quiet quitting and presenteeism. So here are some of the process steps that I would suggest if you haven't already done this. Some of you may have already done this, but might be helpful for you and your company. So in order to work out that authenticity and work out what your company should be doing in this sort of changing landscape, and this isn't just about hybrid, remote, it could be what comes next. Who knows what's going to come next, but you can also use this for that as well. So firstly, understand what matters to you and your people. So speak to them. Communication is absolutely key. The employee experience should be an employee experience. It should be part of their journey. So let them be part of that. Let them be part of what we're going to do as a company. Next, what you need to then do is work out what's going to lead your company to success. So you've got the thoughts of your team, you know what they're looking for, you've got their input, but you need to be realistic. And this is where you then need to look internally at the company and say, okay, what's going to work for us? Maybe, you know, if you're in manufacturing or something like that, obviously remote working isn't necessarily going to be the right option. But you need to kind of work with your team and then find a middle ground of what's going to work for everybody. Then trial your new company's way of working. And I say trial being the key word. As you'll have probably seen with Apple, they went, you know, I think the first year after COVID, they were like, we're not going back to the office. And as of September, I believe, they are now going back to the office 3 days a week. And they've been absolutely grated through the news and everything else because of the fact that they've changed what they said. But the problem is none of us know the answers. We're all still learning, we're adapting, we're shifting everything of what's been done before. So what's really important is that it is a trial. And I think as long as you are open and transparent with your team and show some vulnerability around the fact that we are learning, we don't know all the answers, but we are doing our best, then your team will understand and take them with you on that journey. So then that's when you iterate. So once you know, okay, this doesn't work, change, adapt, move it around, and then try again. And then once you find what works, inform, update, and elevate. So with this, You communicate with your team, right? This is what we're going to be doing moving forward. This is working. Let's keep this. Update your processes. Just because you've now said, okay, we're going to work from the office 2 days a month, you need to think about what is going to be the impact on how you used to work in the past. You can't keep the same things if you're going to do something new. Think about, how do you communicate? How do you run your meetings? For example, we're seeing it a lot within SilverRail, where we need to let people know that they don't have to respond to messages immediately. You know, instant messaging like Slack makes people think they need to be available because they're not in the office, they can't be seen. And so they need to be constantly responding to prove that they're working. So you do need to make those adaptations by saying, it's okay, like, you know, respond when you can, we trust you, we can see the great work you're doing, and make those adaptations so that it is successful for you and your business. Next, elevate. So this is your brand part. This is where you go out there and you talk about what you're doing as a company. So you talk about it in your benefits and your perks, you create blogs, you talk about it and you elevate that brand so that people know who you are and what you're doing. And then you can drive that team to success because you will have an aligned team that's excited by what you're doing. So my key takeaways that I would love for you to take away with you today is, firstly, don't overcomplicate it. I feel like so often when you see something new happen in the world of work, or simply like just trying to find answers of what we should be doing in HR, don't overcomplicate it. We're surrounded by a great team that we can talk to. It shouldn't just be us making the answer or making the decisions. It shouldn't just be HR. It shouldn't just be the leaders. It should be everybody together. So don't overcomplicate it. Then vulnerability, communication, and authenticity is key. So don't pretend to know all the answers and don't be afraid to get it wrong. Like, that's okay. As long as you are communicating and you're being authentically who you are as a company, then it will become easy, because when you pretend to be something you're not, it's hard. But when you are authentically being yourselves, or being your, you know, your company, living your values, it becomes that much easier. And finally, represent your true brand. So don't be caught up by the competition. Obviously, recruitment these days is an absolute nightmare. It's very, very challenging. And so you might feel tempted to be caught up by what the competition is doing, or, you know, promising something to a candidate that isn't real. That will burn you for sure. So represent your true brand, because then you're going to be bringing those people in that are really the right people for you. And I feel with these three things, you will have an aligned, healthy, not people struggling with their mental health because they're not aligned with who you are, engaged and really driven team. Thank you. Any questions at all?
Thank you, Victoria. Just a second.
One question.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, Victoria. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so my name is Ada. I am the Chief HR Officer for Funcom. I have a global team, and I can say that I can resonate a lot with what you have presented.
Fantastic.
So my question for you, because we are going through the same change, you know, we have people coming, a different culture now that we need to build. What you would advise, for example, in an agile company where people are fed up with the clunky, old-fashioned, let's say, processes, HR processes, to find out, okay, what matters for you, you know, what matters for the employees, what matters for the people in the company. Because, you know, we use Office Vibe, we use Culture Amp, we use a lot of tools. But to add on this, you know, different other surveys or questions to the people, it would be heavy. So what is your experience with that? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Very good question. And it is difficult, because I think when you have these different cultures, you'll have some people that are excited by change and some people that are resistant to change. And so it is navigating that. So I think the tools that you're using is fantastic, and that will definitely help. So yes, first of all, survey your team, use stuff like that to survey them. One thing that we do at SilverRail, which I find really effective, is we have something called a quarterly retro. So basically what we do is we use that kind of survey as like the high level speaking to our team and asking what it is that they want, what they're happy with, what they don't like, and then using that to implement change. But then what we do is we have our quarterly retros, which I think really help with the changing, landscape and cultures and helps with that iteration phase. And what we do within those is it's a live sort of forum where we have everyone dial into a live meeting, and they have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms, especially if you have a larger company. I'm not sure on the size of your company, but if you have a larger company, you can break people into breakout rooms and you get them to, in those breakout rooms, discuss, okay, what's going well, what isn't, and what do they want to see you start doing? And what this is like a really handy pulse check, but in an open forum. And the reason that I love this, instead of doing yet another survey, you've got a live forum where you take this information, it's discussed as part of this meeting. It's quite a long one. Normally we do an hour and a half to 2 hours, but because it's done quarterly, it doesn't feel too heavy. And after they've come back, we have like a spokesperson from each breakout room to kind of give their thoughts using Slido, actually. That's the way we kind of share that information so that we capture it as well. But then what we do is we have all of the leadership team there also available to answer questions. So if there are concerns about what we're doing or what we're changing, they have the opportunity to speak to us in HR. They have the opportunity to have, the CEO and the COO and the Chief Strategy Officer there available to ask these questions on the spot. And that just ensures really transparent, open communication. And I think that is absolutely key to when you're making these kind of changes, is that's transparency. Does that help? Hopefully. Any other questions at all?
Yeah, hello, I'm Radu Panaid. I'm the HR director at TotalSoft. I'm having a question related to how do you check the fit with your culture at the selection phase, taking also in the consideration that you need to be inclusive.
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. So you mean as in when you're going through the hiring phase and bringing people into the business, how do you make sure they're the right fit for you?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So I think firstly, the branding that I talked about will be the first thing. And so I think in the past when we used to do recruitment, it was very much a case of you'd put a job advert up, you'd maybe do some headhunting on LinkedIn and do those sorts of things. But now I think it's actually more critical to do recruitment marketing. So a lot of work around putting your brand out there. So, writing blogs, doing videography, doing things that basically expose the world to who you are as a company. That's the reason that that's important is because already when these candidates are applying to your company, they'll already have a very, very good idea of why you are the right company for them. So that's going to naturally help with that culture fit. In terms of the inclusivity side of things, it's really what frameworks you put in place to ensure inclusivity. So for example, obviously there's a lot of different areas of diversity, but what do you do to make sure that you have a really diverse leadership team? It's something, we've got two female leaders across our leadership team. We've got different backgrounds. So talking about that. Also for like neurodiversity, it's really important to ensure that your interview process is inclusive and giving perhaps neurodiverse individuals the opportunity to say that they perhaps need to change the process a little bit better to make it more not easier, but more suitable for them. So for example, putting stuff like that on your job description, we have like a line at the bottom of our job description saying, if you need to adapt your process, please do let us know. We can confidentially make that change for you. And so things like that to help with the inclusivity. But I do think that branding is really, really key, because if you're talking about your diversity and your inclusion in your branding and what you're doing as a company, that will help. And then from the culture side, again, that is going to attract the right people in. The other thing that will really help is just making sure that your interviewers are really really conscious of representing your values as a team. So perhaps asking specific interview questions that might be suitable to kind of understand their values as an individual and matching them as well as part of the interview process.